Good morning, everybody. Happy Saturday. I believe today is the 24th, which makes this the 24th day of the September challenge, which is try to get better by 1% every day. Welcome to all the new people on my channel. I'm very happy that you're here. I am semi-retired Bob. Most of what I do here is talk about my carnivore diet and all things related to the carnivore diet. Today we're going to cover a topic I like to call, do I know too much? But first I gotta say hello to Ready Set Keto. I stopped into their live stream last night just to say hello because I'd noticed he'd been watching some of my videos, and he and his wife said some wonderful things about me that I couldn't believe somebody was saying those things about me. Now I'm afraid to go meet people because I'm not really this nice a guy in person. Now I probably am, but it's a little weird to hear people talking about you like that. I suppose it's something I'm going to have to get used to. We did break the 1,700 subscriber mark this morning. I don't understand. But what brought me to this topic today of do I know too much? I ran over to Fairway to check out some sales and bumped into somebody that I hadn't seen in quite some time. And they asked me, of course, the initial questions are, how'd you do it? What are you doing? And I don't shy away from that. I told him exactly what I was doing. And of course, he thought that was a little weird. Imagine that. Somebody thinks carnivore diet's weird, even though it's ancestrally appropriate. But then he asked me the question that got me thinking. He's like, well, are you always going to do this? Or after you get down to where you want to be, are you going to, start eating more things? And that's a really complicated question. I am probably going to see one thing at a time what I can add back in. Now, when I say checking to see what I can add back in, we're talking about, I really like green beans, especially green beans cooked in bacon grease. I've always liked that. I liked that as a kid. That's the way my mom always made green beans, was to dump some bacon grease in the pot with them and let them simmer for a while. Something like that I would be interested in trying. But am I going to go back to eating all the crap? No. I mean, would you ask a guy who's been in Alcoholics Anonymous for 10 years and, finally feels like he's got control of everything, and he gets his 10-year chip, you say, oh, 10-year chip, that's fantastic. Let's go to the bar and celebrate, just one drink. Well, you wouldn't do that. That's ridiculous. And I got to thinking about what some of my favorite foods were, and what brings me to the actual topic today: do I know too much to ever go back? Let's stop and think about it. I've mentioned before, I love pizza. Pizza is my jam. And yes, I know there's lots of carnivore and keto recipes for pizza out there, and they taste okay, but they're not the same as a large stuffed crust from either, well, there are several places that sell stuffed crust now. It's just not the same. But now that I know what I know about the flour, whether it be wheat flour or corn flour or whatever kind of flour they're using in their dough, Can I really ignore that and go back to eating that stuff? I don't think so. You know, it's like you're scrolling through the internet and something pops up on your page, on your viewer that you have no interest in, but now that you've seen it, you can't unsee it. You have seen the thing. And now that I know what I know, I don't know that I can unsee that. It's like seed oils. After knowing what we've learned over the last several months of doing carnivore diet, could we actually go back and eat something that we know full well was cooked in canola oil or corn oil or Crisco, which is cottonseed oil? Even discounting the inflammatory effects and the effects that we know seed oils have on our body personally, even if we don't have that severe of a reaction to a little bit of seed oil, are we really going to be able to go back to eating that? Could you really? Could you really go back to eating something cooked in seed oil? I don't think I could. What about added sugars? I mean, if you're like me, you're a sugar addict. You love sugar. Sugar's great. But, you stop thinking to yourself, your addicted brain goes, oh, go ahead. Look how good you're doing. One little jelly donut's not going to kill you. And your addicted brain is probably right. Eating one jelly donut is probably not going to kill you. But knowing how addicted you were to sugar, how addicted I was to sugar, could I really stop at one? I don't know that I could. In that Ready Set Keto live stream last night, they were talking about different things, and the subject of ice cream came up, and I said, I'm not a moderation person. To me, every container of ice cream in the store is a single serving container. It doesn't matter if it's one of those little half pint size ice creams or one of the big, 1 to 3 gallon tubs of ice cream. Once I get started on something like ice cream, especially if it's a flavor I really like, my addicted brain keeps thinking, well, just a little bit more won't hurt. Just a little bit more would be good. You're still hungry, so eat a little bit more. And before you know it, you've eaten the entire gallon of ice cream. And as I was talking about fruit yesterday and how the young and super active can get away with stuff, I don't think even a young and super active person can get away with eating a whole gallon of ice cream. Not for very long anyway. I mean, if you're addicted the way I am, and you have, there was a sale on it, so you bought, 10 or 15 gallons of ice cream and stuck them out in your freezer, intending on that to last you the entire summer, which is a good thought. It's on sale. I'll go ahead and buy enough for the whole summer. But then you start eating. And then you eat some more. And then you eat some more. And it never ends till you've eaten it all. Good morning. How are you today? So the real question, can you really go back? Or do you now know too much to ever go back? It's like, you occasionally hear people saying, well, keto didn't really work that well for me, so I'm going to give it up. What are you going to give it up for? You got to find a way to make it work for you. Whether it be eat more fat or eat more protein or, whatever it is that's causing you not to get the success you think you should get. Are you really going to go back to eating what made you sick in the first place? Are you really going to say, well, keto or carnivore didn't work very well for me, so I'm going to go back to eating pizza and jelly donuts? Yeah, because that'll really help. Do you know too much to go back? If you don't, you're not doing enough research on everything. If you can actually go back, you haven't read enough of the articles that Dr. Berry and others post. As he says, down in the show notes, I'll put links to all the research I used for this video. Well, don't just take his word for it. Go read some of that stuff. If you're not reading some of that stuff, you're not doing your job. Well, I don't want to say that either. It's not your job. Because if you've got something that's working for you, like I spoke about yesterday with the pain, if there's something that's working and taking your pain away, it doesn't really matter why it works. All you care about is that you're not in pain anymore. Sorry about the sun there. I'll see how that footage comes out. But this is a kind of a different time of day from when I'm used to walking. And I'm not used to the sun being so brilliant right there. Across the street here. So let me know what you think about that down in the comments. Do you know too much to ever go back? Are you considering adding a few things when you get to goal? Which I think is perfectly fine as long as you do it the right way. I'm on that second hill, heading up to that stop sign I didn't quite make it to a few videos ago. So while I walk up this hill and try to think of something else to talk about, that's the one problem with these 1% September challenges. As we're getting down towards the end of the month, getting longer and longer and longer, and the topics I choose to talk about just aren't quite long enough to cover how far the walk goes. But if you're still here, why don't you go ahead and hit that subscribe button. It doesn't cost you anything, and it really helps out the channel. If you agree with anything I've said today so far, go ahead and hit that thumbs up button. Let me know you agree. And if you disagree with me, or just for whatever reason you don't like the way I look, which is perfectly okay, go ahead and hit that dislike button twice to really let me know you don't like it. Yeah, somebody in my comments yesterday asked me if I'd ever considered having a fitness tracker of some sort. And I did actually have one once upon a time. This was like 4 years ago when I was just doing the initial recovery from my heart surgery. I was going to the swimming pool over at the Y and walking inside the swimming pool. But apparently, the cheap ones don't track you unless you're walking at a certain pace, or it might have been because I was in the water. I don't know why, but it never really worked. And that kind of turned me off on them. With all the advances they've made, I wouldn't mind getting an Apple Watch at some point, but it wouldn't do me much good right now because I got a Samsung Android phone. I had to get rid of my Apple phone, and that's an interesting little story in and of itself, because my mom also has an Apple phone. She inherited basically every year my brother gets a new phone and gives mom his old one. So she has an Apple phone, and in the evenings she'll fall asleep for a few minutes and then wake up and think it's days later. That's really the only time she has a lot of problem, is in those situations. So she definitely has a little bit of sundowners going on. Here's that side street I turned around at yesterday. So we're going to try and go on just a little bit more, just up into the driveway or so. I don't want to start off that big hill yet. I may add a few steps back at the bottom when I get back down there. But so sometimes in her confused state, she'll wake up and know that she wants to call somebody, but then just start pushing buttons. So of course she'll end up locking her iPhone. And the only thing I knew how to do, just by watching some videos on YouTube, is to unlock an iPhone that's been locked like that. You have to plug it into your iTunes. Well, she didn't have an iTunes, and I didn't think to make her an iTunes account to unlock her phone with. I just plugged her into mine, reset it, and she was off and running. But then I started to notice the little strangeness happening, where pictures she would take with her phone would end up showing up on my phone, and text messages that she would send to somebody else would start showing up on my phone. And the real problem came up when, in one of her confused states, she woke up, and because Apple thinks it's the same phone, it synced up the contact list. All of a sudden, she's calling my pastor from when I lived down in New Orleans to ask him if he's seen me at, what works out to be 11 or 12 o'clock at night. thankfully, all the people that she called like that were very understanding. But to prevent that, since I didn't know how to fix it, and it was time to upgrade my iPhone anyway, because I was working on an iPhone 8, I just bought this Samsung. And when this one wears out, I'll go ahead and get myself another iPhone. So I figured that'd be 3-4 years down the line. I don't know what these cars are all waiting on, but I guess if that car's just going to sit there, I'm going to go ahead and keep walking. So that's why I want an Apple Watch, but I can't really have an Apple Watch right now because I don't have an Apple phone to put with it. If anybody has any other suggestions out there for a good fitness tracker that's within the budget of a retired guy, then go ahead and mention that down in the comments as well. But that's the story of the iPhone, and that's the story of the do I know too much. And I'm sorry, folks, I'm running out of stuff to say here. Oh, okay. I can talk about what's going to happen on the 1st of November. What I think I'm going to do, since the topics I come up with run out of time, I think I'm going to end up so that, a month from now, we're not all sitting in front of our computers trying to watch a 45 or 50 minute video. What I think I'm going to do is start the video, start the walk, show you the first, half mile to a mile, and then I'll record the whole thing still, but then I'll cut out sections where nothing really happens. If I get to an interesting spot, like here, I might stop and say, look up into that pine tree. That's an amazing pine tree. Or whatever it happens to be. I'll have all of that footage, but I won't have to, I won't have to keep posting longer and longer and longer videos. And I know some of you would like that, but for other concerns, I just can't continue to post longer and longer and longer videos. I mean, I could, maybe, but since I'm trying to reach a lot of people, there comes a time, right now, there's no problem at all. Because even with all of my regulars watching the entire thing, that only cuts down my overall channel view time. I'm still breaking the 60% mark on how much people are watching. And I personally don't care about all that, but YouTube does. And if I want to continue to reach people, I have to keep the watch time at a certain level for the YouTube algorithm to pick those videos up and show it to people that aren't already subscribed. So I sort of want to do that. I haven't decided everything yet. I'm still working on all that. I've got a little bit of time. Still got about 6 or 7 days of this challenge. And I'm not just going to stop cold turkey and change cold turkey. I'll ease into it a little bit because I certainly don't want to stop walking. But if you'd like to watch my entire walking video, the link to that's going to pop up over here. And if you've already watched all that, a link to another video you haven't seen should pop up right here. Everyone have a great day. Get out there, be 1% better today. We'll see you tomorrow.